Okay, hey everybody, we're back. I just did the intro for the project, so you can watch the video before this as we take apart the handout. And we are now picking up at the part where we're going to take it apart. We're going to deconstruct our research work to kind of analyze them in a physical way and see if we can build our own vocabulary of marks, composition, color, and so forth, form for our own painting. So I'm going to set this aside. This is the artist we're looking at, Jörg Dressler. Big flat areas of color, little broken flyaways, sections of imagery that are chopped out in interesting fashions. They often seem to have a good sense of movement through space using both design elements and then the imagery that he's chosen to work from. He had said in his artist statement that the landscape imagery is his from his travels and that the design elements are from his graphic design background. These nice sense of moving into the picture plane with a stacked dynamic design that works so well. He also has these great little painterly marks that are pretty beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to be inspired by these, and I'm going to use my own natural imagery, and I want it to be based on the floral image. And I was thinking, you know, I make a lot of paintings of florals, but I've always wanted to incorporate some kind of a graphic element. And instead of using the elements that he's using this way, I thought I would use some of my friend Becca's imagery of her hand-dyed silk ribbons to help me kind of figure out how to fracture or break up my space. So let's see what happens. I have these two images that I thought I could work from. It's a smaller one. And I think just because these are little studies, I'm going to do a quick trace and transfer method, which we have done in class. Kind of holding this up to the light, tracing out where the bow is, so I don't have to cover the whole thing in charcoal. Okay, so I might use this as a way to fracture the picture plane, but I'm going to look and see, like compositionally, this is fairly centered, fairly low, kind of off to the left of the composition. I might kind of go low into the left and have lots of negative space. So let's try this. Then I'll quickly sketch this out from Becca's image. And as these are studies, I'm just going to kind of work with this quick trace and transfer method. I think I'm just going to start by sketching out the outline. And not get into any of the intersections of the ribbon and see what it looks like. It's a crazy design. I think I am going to draw a little more of it. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. So I'll set this aside. And I think what I want to start with is I think the eye-catching thing about these from the beginning were these really beautiful flat backgrounds. So I'm going to start by trying to paint out these kind of pastel, softer color areas. I'm going to maybe look at my research information to decide about a color palette. I'm kind of thinking maybe like a violety or a pink kind of background, or maybe a pale green. I'm going to go with a green so that the cool color recedes and then the warm will come up on top. So let's mix something up here. I'm going to neutralize it just a tiny bit with my alizarin so that I'm using the cooler red. I'm using barely any, but I think it will make it look a little less like toothpaste, hopefully. Kind of grade it down. And I feel like our research subject is using a little less value. Actually, they're pretty bright. Maybe I'll go a little lighter value to start, and then I can bump up some. Yeah, that's pretty. That's what I'm thinking, is I'll neutralize it down so it's a little bit grayer. Push the value down some. And let's lower the contrast, or the chroma, excuse me. It's a little alizarin. Yeah, it's kind of graying out. I might do a little more of the alizarin. Yeah. I like that. And then I might also, like this one, drop it down a value too. So I think I'm going to cut it in half. And I'll have two values. My hope is that I'm mixing my palette for my final painting. I'll get a little more white. Oops, sorry. Okay. Yeah, that was probably like 90% white and 10% of the green. That's really lovely because it's almost white, but it's got a little tension to it. So again, kind of referencing what I have going here, just thinking about how cool it is that he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 value shifts just in those graphic design elements in the back. So how am I going to translate that is the question. I mean, maybe I'll cut this and make a little more. I liked the way that alizarin was shifting it. Let's see if I pull it. Oh, that went a little pink. There, it's kind of graying out. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Ooh, that's lovely. Okay, so I think I'm gonna ready to paint it. I'm just gonna use a synthetic flat brush and try to maybe paint out the negative space. I'm gonna start with a little bit of the solvent-free medium just to wet my brush a little. And I think I'm gonna go with, start with a darker one. I'm pretty sure my research artist is using tape. I could see it in some of the close-ups when I kind of zoomed in. I'm going to try and see if I can, just especially for the sake of studies, see if I can freehand some stuff. And again, I'm not trying to recreate his, I'm just trying to be inspired by it. I'm going to take a clean brush and drizzle some of this into my paint because I had recycled an old palette. I don't know if you guys could see that there was like a little chunky stuff. I had cleaned a palette and moved the paint over. So it's all a little dried out. So I'm adding a little medium. Make it move around better. I'm using the solvent-free medium to start the bottom layer so it dries faster and it's considered the thin layer. And then after I move into my next round, I can shift to using the linseed oil, which is the thick layer or fat that can go on the top. So while these are just like little test paintings, like we have done these all semester, these little testers, but just kind of consciously making a little 4-part series is a little different than just making the one and doing it because we are kind of pulling apart the different parts, at least at the start. I'm able to cut these fairly clean edged lines because I put that medium in the paint, so it's helping it flow across the surface a little better. Even though they're tests, I want to try to retain them as something, you know, kind of thoughtful. So I'm trying to paint away from the edges of the tape so it doesn't bleed up underneath. And then like in the research painting, trying to smooth this out so it's really flat and even. I know my line is right there, but I think I'm going to have it swoop out so it feels like it has more perspective coming towards us. Make the paint a little thinner. Again, I'm just using a clean brush to drizzle it in so that I'm not contaminating my expensive medium. Oh. There we go. Oh, here. So just alone by looking at his way of breaking up space. By no means did I copy or do what he's doing. I just was inspired by these hard edges, this desaturated lower chroma grayscale negative space. I achieved this kind of almost a chromatic gray, a little greenish set of colors by using I think it's a sap green, and then used a cool red, which is the alizarin, this one, to neutralize across the wheel with its complements. I feel like something's going on here that I'm confused by, so I'm going to look back at my reference image. Oh, right here. Okay. So I used my friend's bow imagery to break down and abstract kind of the way that our example image broke down and shifted in space. I think what I might do though, because I painted this all that one flat color, I'm gonna look at his work again and see. Well, that's fun. Whoa. So this might relate to that, like that little bit richer, darker one. So maybe I could do part of the ribbon, one value, and another part of the ribbon, another value coming from my space. I feel like I might be missing like an extra gray. I feel like I need one more to maybe have it be that complex. How many does he have here? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. These might be the same, 4. I guess I have 4. So we'll see what happens. I think I'm going to jump to the gray-ish color. It's a little more medium. Again, like I said, I'm recycling some paints here. So they're a little chunky for these tests. I'm not going to clean this out too much. Sometimes I would clean it in there and then rinse it out and put it in here. But since I'm all in the same family of color, I'm just going to go ahead and use it as a way to kind of keep neutralizing and building a family between this color. Yeah, that is a really pretty chromatic gray. That makes me super happy. Okay, I'm going to use this. So this little painting is just going to be my background study. And then the next one, I might come in and the way that he has something that's more highly rendered, like the waterfall, the rocks, and the tree, I may come in and try to maybe render the bow more, or render some of my flowers more, something like this. So we'll see how what that next step will unfold. And I think starting a project like this, even for me, it's like, oh, how am I going to begin? But it's like once you begin, then you have a lot of the answers start to come to you as you start painting. You find the parts that you like. You're hopefully building a pretty palette that you like. Oh, I like that gray a lot. I'm going to look at my reference. So that's kind of a foreground shape. Foreground. Might do these in the lights, and then I'll do those in something different. So I'm not really trying to make a painting of a bow. I'm just using it as my subject to create this designed kind of graphic background. I'd have to add a little more medium so that the paint keeps moving nicely. Again, I'm using the medium on this background layer so that it will dry a little quicker. Trying to really have that hard edge quality between the two values, the two hues. Making sure that I don't have any of that raw canvas showing through. I'll leave a little stripe there so I can fill it in later with a different value for some detail, but if you felt like you wanted to switch brushes, you could. I just really prefer the flats for cutting a straight edge. So I'm intentionally kind of working into that gray, or into that green, so that there's a nice transition between the edges. Remind myself to breathe. Because I'm using recycled paint here, I've got some little chunks in there. Get them out. Maybe shift to a different value. Again, I'm going to retain some of this color of this family into the next color I use. So it's these little abstractions where I'm taking apart and being kind of inspired by the artist I'm looking at. Again, I loved his hard edges, so I'm going to try pretty hard to mimic that. Again, I'm pretty sure he uses tape, but we can maybe use those again later. I think we've learned over the, oops, wrong color. Over the semester, you know, to cut the edges the way you want, you need to add that medium to help change the viscosity of the paint to get it to go where you want it to go. I can't tell if that's paint or canvas. That's paint. Do it again just in case. I so rarely paint this flat, and it's fun to try it. I need a little more medium. Oh, that might have been too much. Oh well. Okay, switch values again. Oops. It's like meditating through a straight line. Oh, I keep bumping this one. Okay, 1, 2, maybe I'll put another light one here. And then I'll lay in those smaller areas. I might check my research material again to see if in the smaller areas they are done with darker or lighter values, or maybe that's where I could do like a little crazy color block or something fun. So again, it's not that I'm trying to copy his, I'm just trying to be inspired by it and try something different and kind of new. Get yourself to paint in a way that you don't normally, or the way you haven't tried before. I can't tell you the last time I tried to paint so slow and careful. It's fun. Just a little chunk. Sorry. I might run a strip of this here. Gonna try. Can't find my liner brush. I'll try a little flat maybe. Maybe I'll pull this up here. I'm thinking at some point I want to shift to doing some kind of crazy little color block, but I'm not sure yet. Yeah, maybe we can look at our inspiration. Oh, these don't have those little color blocks. That's interesting. Some of the ones in the smaller studies I looked at had these little color shifts, which are pretty fun. I'll have to research why he was using those. That's interesting. But I think I might do some little chunky color in here just to see maybe how it'll work. Or maybe I'll do that on the next one. I could even try it there. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just keep this one simple in the spirit of pulling it apart. I've used my other value here. Serves me right for using this recycled paint as all little paint skins in it. The smaller the brush, the harder time I have to control it. I don't have as much time to react to the bristles pushing down, so I'm going to actually switch. Like with the flat, larger synthetic, I can control how much pressure I have, and I can see if that brush is coming up or down. But when it's little, I have less reaction time. I think this will be my first little deconstruction painting, and I will leave it at that. And then this will be something fun that I can work on later. So again, by no means am I trying to recreate one of his paintings, but I was so inspired by the chroma and the value that he was using, the complexity of how many shifts he's using. Like at a first glance, it doesn't seem that hard to block out color, but his is so impressive because it has all these shifts and these neat little sections. This one being a lot flatter. Maybe the next one I'll do just like a flat wash and then put something on it. And in one of them, I'm going to investigate my floral image to make it more complicated. So again, not that I'll end up with any kind of a study of his. I'm just being inspired by the way that he has used form. Okay, I will come back in another video working on these if you wanted to watch through. And then once these come together, this is the take it apart section. Then we're going to put it all back together with our own subject, our own content, inspired by the form of some painters that we love, and then we'll make our own work. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you soon.